Alright, I want to try to keep this short. 2020 was a terrible year for a lot of people. A lot of us were stuck inside of our houses during the lockdowns and only stuck with our inner demons and trying to cope with a lot of what was going on in our own personal lives and our mental health. A lot of us were unfortunately playing the shitfest that was The Last of Us 2. And of course, 2020 was the year where the Me Too movement decided to hit the gaming industry and the gaming communities all around the world, and a lot of people were outed as very terrible people. A lot of content creators and competitive players were outed as doing very terrible things over the years during the times that they were active in their respective communities, and it was a terrible time. The Smash community was hit pretty hard with a lot of their top competitors actually getting outed for doing a lot of really shitty things during their time in the community, and it was around the time frame where I started to distance myself from interacting with the community in any sort of way. And not that I really interacted with the community that much, but I stopped paying attention to what was going on with certain players and certain people within the community because of the 2020 Me Too era that happened with the gaming industry. And only recently has something big really happened to one of the top players in the Melee community, where I think it's finally time to say something about it and say something about another person, another player who's actively involved in the situation, and that's Leffen. I think Leffen is widely known as one of the most toxic individuals within any of the fighting game communities. Any community that he goes into, people absolutely despise him. He goes into Guilty Gear, people hate him. He goes into Tekken and starts shitting on Tekken, and people hate him. But back to Guilty Gear, like I was saying, he said something about a player or a character in the game getting nerfed and some of the changes that were made towards him, and then he started going after another competitive player who's widely known for playing that character, and then starts harassing him, and he asks for a response towards him, gets it, and then is like, no, I'm too busy to respond to that bullshit. The only community that seems to actually ever respond to him and respect to him and treats him and sucks his cock all the time is the Smash community. The Smash community seems to be the only community that actually involves him in any sort of way, and I think it's for good reason. It's because he's driven a lot of people out because he doesn't like them, because he thinks that they are not on his level, because he is just a toxic, disgusting human being that has done a lot of really terrible things since all the way back towards the Smash forums in 2013 when Evidence.zip was created, and it exposed a lot of his shitty behavior, such as spreading misinformation, lying, bullying, making fun of people's disabilities, and many, many more that is publicly available for you to go and read for yourself. And a lot of the same behavior that he was doing back in 2013 when he was around the ages of maybe 15 to 18 years old. He likes to say that he was 15, but if you do the math of when he was born to when the events started to take place and when he was actually banned, he was roughly around 18 years old. So I'm just going to say that he was 18 years old at the time. So when he was 18 and he was doing all the things that he was doing on the Smash forums, he's still pretty much doing the same thing today. And one of the worst things that he did was what he was doing towards another top competitor named Hax. Hax was a player who was involved with the Melee community for an extremely long time, and for a short period of time, he actually couldn't properly play the game because the GameCube controller that he was playing on just destroyed his wrist. He couldn't play the game properly, and so he created his own ergonomic controller that allowed him to be able to play the game however he could. And it was widely successful, and he ended up having an amazing run with the controller. It was so ergonomic that he ended up trying to mass produce this controller, and so he worked with another individual who could actually end up doing that, but they tried to steal the patent from him, and then they ultimately tried to send a lawsuit towards him to get the patent, and then tried to blackmail him and extort him out of $100,000 of money that he didn't deserve, and it should have stayed with Hax, but instead he just wanted the cash and any sort of cash that Hax can end up giving him. So what ended up happening afterwards when that person took the patent that Hax had created for the box, which is the controller that Hax created, he created his own company called Frame One, which basically just takes the same layout and the same structure of the controller that Hax had created, and he created his own company, Frame One, and then he got two people to start trying to promote this. Jisoo, who is a known member of the community who is absolutely fucking terrible and has spread lies and misinformation about another player named Zero. Whether or not you believe most of it is not true, but what we do know is a lot of what Jisoo was saying that Leffen had actually corroborated is verifiably not true. So we already know that Leffen is a liar when it comes to talking about other specific Smash competitors, and then teaming up with Jisoo also doesn't good light, but also the fact that he ended up also teaming up with Frame One to promote the controller because he doesn't like Hax. And this is ultimately what ended up starting to lead towards Hax to create Evidence.zip 2, which is a video series trying to document all the things that Leffen has done over the years. A lot of what was said was verifiable because we have Evidence.zip 1 and a lot of other information that was said over the years, but there was definitely a lot within Evidence.zip 2 that Hax had created that wasn't verifiable, that wasn't legitimate, that wasn't appropriate to use against him. So what ended up happening? What eventually ended up happening with evidence.zip 2 is that Hacks took what was said in the videos, changed a lot of it, but ultimately ended up unlisting the videos entirely because he wanted to apologize to Leffen so that he can go back and continue to keep playing competitive Melee. Because ultimately what ended up happening after evidence.zip 2 and Leffen's reaction towards all this is that he got really upset that Hacks had created all this and tried to slander him and like harass him in any sort of way, and then tried to say that anytime that Hacks would apologize towards Leffen, that it was him trying to send his audience towards Leffen, even though repeatedly Hacks has said multiple times not to harass him. It got him banned. It got Hacks banned from any competitive Melee event in its entirety. Couldn't go to any of them. Couldn't even go to his own Melee tournament series called Hacks' Midnight Club. The NYC Melee community took the nightclub, changed the name, took Hacks' name out of it, and completely stole his tournament series. And now if you go and look for the tweet that shows why he got banned from the tournament series and from Smash events entirely, the tweet is gone. It doesn't exist anymore because the person who fucking organized this whole thing deleted it. So just, if you're paying attention, right? If you're paying attention and if you like read what's been going on through the years, you realize that like Leffen has been a terrible person over the years, has done a lot of really shitty things, all without suffering any repercussions for it. Multiple people have made videos about his shitty behavior, all of which they can go and do so. They've all done a fantastic job categorizing and recording and documenting all of his shitty behavior that has not all been punished for. And Hacks ultimately ended up just losing the thing that he loved the most, which was to play Melee. That was all that he ever wanted to do. All he ever wanted to do was just to play Melee, and he couldn't do it anymore because he got banned from every single Smash event ever. And what ultimately ended up happening is that he had become suicidal, even though he was apologizing the whole time, and Leffen still kept trying to say that he was trying to funnel his audience to go and attack him. He still kept apologizing, still felt more, ultimately tried to take his own life. And he ended up surviving his attempt, thank God, but didn't matter anyways because after the complications that ended up happening and being hospitalized in the ICU because of his attempt, he passed away anyway. Hacks ended up losing his life because he couldn't do the thing that he wanted to do the most, which was to play Melee. Why couldn't they have just allowed him to play Melee? He did everything that needed to be done. He got rid of evidence.zip 2, completely unlisted all the videos. You couldn't actually publicly see them anymore unless you had a link towards those videos. Even then, before he did that, he completely revised them and changed them, but they still documented a lot of things that are valid, right? Valid to call out Leffen for because he is a very toxic individual and isn't just a villain of the community anymore. He's genuinely a terrible person that has had shitty behavior over the course of over a decade at this point. And it's just like, and then you take his event, you take his tournament series, you take away the one thing that he wanted the most, and he was still apologizing for it. He completely took back everything that he had said, apologized for all of his behavior, and you still took the thing that he cared about most. Absolutely shitty fucking behavior. The leadership of these TOs from any of the Smash events that have banned him from any event needs to change. The Melee community needs to change for the better, or else this whole thing is going to go under fire and we're going to end up losing more players, more amazing players for this amazing community that it once was before in the past. Mewtwo another top competitor, was actually a victim of Leffen at one point when Leffen started to try to spread the misinformation that Mewtwo was even though none of the information that was said about him was verifiable and justified. So yeah, just absolutely shitty behavior from Leffen. Terrible fucking person. Needs to suffer some sort of repercussion, right? I'm not even saying that he needs to get banned. He just needs to suffer from the repercussions of his actions. Everything that he has done so far. He momentarily had gotten banned from Smash events in Sweden, in his home country, but that's it, right? And even then, he wasn't even banned for that long, and he ended up getting unbanned, so now he's able to go to Smash events in Sweden. It doesn't matter, right? He's still able to play the game. He's still able to be a part of the Melee community. He's still able to be a part of multiple other fighting game communities. Even though he's a terrible, toxic human being. It's like, why even bother, right? Why even bother having this fucking player be involved in your event in some sort of way when all he's done is just be a terrible person? Anyways, go and donate towards the GoFundMe for Hacks. Please go donate because obviously his family is going to need the money to be able to give their son, their brother, their uncle, their nephew, whatever, just a proper send off and a proper burial, because At the very least, that's what he deserves. If he couldn't play Melee anymore, if he can't play Melee anymore because now he's gone, he should be able to actually have a proper burial, because that's ultimately what he just now deserves. So yeah, go to donate to his GoFundMe. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.